Alright guys, looking at the screen right now, some of you may recognise this game. But for those that don't, this is VVVVVV. Now, I know it looks like an old Commodore 64 game, but in fact this is a little indie platformer made and released back in 2010 by designer Terry Kavanagh. Or Kavanagh? Kavanagh? We'll go with Kavanagh. Today's video is about this game and the exploration of a single mechanic. At the time of this recording, I will have bought VVVVVV on 3 or 4 occasions, and I've played through it at least a dozen times. The game is a bit of an oddity to me, because while I cannot deny the quality of the game, I don't think it quite ranks at the top of the greatest platformers of all time list. I mean, this is taking nothing away from the game, it's an underappreciated gem. All I'm saying is that it's not Super Mario World. But let's face it, what is? The reason I bring this up is because, obviously, something is continuing to draw me back into this game for repeated playthroughs. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, ownership is definitely a factor in this. I was following I'm just gonna call it V. I was following V through development and was one of the first people to buy it just 4 days after it came out. The indie game development scene wasn't anything like it is today, so I bought the game directly from Terry's website. Now, what existed around it was a small, dedicated community that championed the game to no end. So it would be like discovering a band or a really cool cult movie, you know? We all got the word out there, told everyone we could about it. By the year's end, the game had made it onto Steam. And in 2010, that was a really big deal, especially for a small indie platformer made by one person. And the game went on to be quite successful there. So the rest is history. But being there at the start, supporting this game and watching it do well, unquestionably colours my view of V as a game. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about how and why I think it's great. So, for those of you that are already typing, feeling the need to tell me that I'm biased in the comments, well, let me save you some time. Yes, I am. I am biased. Okay, cool? Cool. Now, for the rest of us that are still here, let's get on with why this game is brilliant. It's not like V had any reason to appeal to me at first glance. You know, I didn't own a Commodore. My first console was a Mega Drive, so the strange and stark style held no nostalgia for me. Instead, it was the game's central mechanic that grabbed my attention. In V, your character, the adorable little Commander Viridian, cannot jump. Not at all. Not hop. Instead, the game opts to throw out what many would consider the defining mechanic of a platformer, and replaces it with a gravity flip. So, when this choice had been made, the next question had to be, how do you make a platformer when you're designing the game around not being able to jump? Well, the first answer is to keep things simple. V is a 3-button game. You go left, you go right, and you flip. That's it. Your character also exists in one state. Unlike in Mario or Sonic, where you get power-ups or change size, your character always stays the same. He's either alive or he's dead. And then, if he's dead, he's swiftly alive again. There's no health pickups. It's a one-touch then death system with quick respawns, similar to another great platformer released later that very same year, Super Meat Boy. The very beginning of the game uses a teaching blueprint that can be seen in the original Super Mario Bros. For the NES. At the beginning of both games, your character is left in a safe space. This allows players to mess around with controls and get a feel for the movement. You move to the right, then comes your first challenge. In Mario, it's a Goomba. In V, it's a Spike Pit, but both teach the same lesson. You cannot progress until you execute the game's core mechanic, jumping or flipping, respectively. And if you die, in both instances, you get a quick respawn, so it's no big deal. From here, the early stages of both games involve introducing players to core gameplay elements. Enemies, timing jumps and flips, moving platforms, all the good stuff. It's after these initial stages where V diverges from the traditional platformer. V opens up into a kind of Metroidvania-esque game where you're left to just set out in any direction and look for your various lost crewmates. In other platformers, things are mixed up by introducing new enemy types, environments, like ice levels or underwater stages. All things that change the behaviour and the movement of your character and the way in which they interact with the world. V doesn't do this. It keeps things pure, with distinct zones within the game providing interesting spins on the already established gravity mechanic. So, you might arrive at the warp zone, where the game presents the idea of space folding back on itself and requires you to rethink your spatial awareness. You might stumble into the infamous tower, where you're put to the test by a vertical, auto-scrolling section. It requires quick reflexes and a willingness to take leaps of faith, throwing yourself into the unknown just to escape the spikes. Or perhaps you'll reach the laboratory, where there are gravity-changing lines, which reverse your current flip state as soon as you cross them. Each of these elements is introduced in a really smart way. For example, in the lab, you have to drop down this hole to enter it. As soon as you enter the next screen, you'll see there's spikes everywhere. So, in all likelihood, you won't move until you've figured things out, got your lay of the land. But by this point, you've hit the gravity line, and you head back up the way you came. Bingo! Straight away, you know how gravity lines work. You don't have to be taught. You don't have to have an explanation. You just know now. These areas not only offer their own challenges, but also build your skill and knowledge of how the game systems operate as a whole. So, at the end of the game, when all these elements are combined and remixed together, you can take those challenges head on without feeling overwhelmed. By building games around single, centralized mechanics, it allows designers to really explore ideas and challenge players in increasingly complex ways. Concepts get introduced, developed, and then players are challenged on them. V, of course, is not the only game to do this. You can see this one mechanic exploration in loads of different games, including Portal, Braid, the Trials series, and even Terry Cavana's follow-up to V, Super Hexagon. There's a purity to these experiences, and it's fascinating to watch designers take an idea and run with it to try and show an audience its full potential. Thanks very much guys for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any interest in checking out V, and I totally would recommend you do because it's a cool little game, then it's available for pretty much every platform you could think of now. PC, Mac, smartphones, PS4. I think it's even available on the Ouya for the 3 people worldwide that still play with their Ouyas. Anyway, that's all from me guys. I'm going to leave you with some of the game's excellent music. Until next time, cheerio.